Hello and welcome back to Pandemic Playground with Dave. We are back with another experiment in a way, and we are gonna showcase small rovers. Alright, so this is somewhat of an experiment, somewhat of a rover evolution kind of build episode because I was just actually playing around and I'm gonna make the smallest rover I can. And it's also going to be somewhat of a how-to, almost unflippable, small rover. So let's just get started. So in terms of the evolution piece of it, I first started with making a small little rover such as this. So the base is just batteries, we have a buggy cockpit, and we actually have suspension on suspension as our wheel system. So normally you would see like a suspension on a block and then a suspension, but try to make it as compact as possible, as small as possible, not too wide, not too lengthy, things like that. And that was the initial kind of build idea, just for fun, to make this small little rover like this. And this is all small battery based in that sense. It looks pretty cool, it rides pretty well, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But evolutionary wise, and then I just decided to make something try to make it even smaller than this one. So I made somewhat of a tractor looking like one right here, and this is where I started thinking about, can we experiment with making a rover with neon tubes? So that was kind of the experiment, if we could make a neon tube based rover. And right here is pretty much you can, as long as you do it in the right order of the tubings or whatever the case is. So make sure you can stick it towards the top, sides, and things like that. So I made this kind of like tractor looking like rover, and this again is battery based, small battery based, not much of a recharge going on here, but it did make it a little bit longer than I wanted, but it's still pretty small rover in that case. I could have used other cockpits or things like that, other cockpits or seat, but this was like the least wide one because it's only a 2 width one instead of 3 width one like all the other cockpits. So I was just playing around with that, and we just then moved on to this piece here, which is mainly built on neon tubes. So you see here is suspension on suspension, and what's connecting to the buggy cockpit is actually the neon tubes right here on the bottom and on top, and a little bit on the side as well. So it connects everything, and it looks like one of those, I wouldn't say ATVs, but the other one, I forget what they call it. But it's similar looking, like, so that's what I like about this one. But yeah, it's all connected by neon tubes, and this one is a reactor based one, so it's not batteries. So we can get the power that we need from it without, you know, having two small batteries and plop on too much of a battery. So we use the little reactors here, and that kind of makes it look almost like an engine at in the rear of it as well. So this one is pretty cool. I like this one for the most part. And then I moved on with this one here, which is even smaller than the other ones, which is not wide at all. It's only as long, it's as wide as 2 suspensions stuck together, and as long as the buggy cockpit, as you see here. And I put the reactors in front to look like the engine, and just put a little bit of neon tubing as a base to kind of surround it. And then the last iteration of it was all neon tubings connected to the suspensions, but in the opposite ways. So kind of trying to make it like a motorcycle or something similar to that fashion, but 2 wheels on both front and back, but kind of act like 1 wheel in that sense. So that's what I was playing around with, small rovers, making small rovers, and then slowly evolving to make other smaller rovers and things like that. So the smallest you can get it is probably going to be this buggy cockpit right here, lengthwise, and you can really stick 2 suspensions together if you need to, and it makes it as, that's probably the least widest you can get here. And we did 3x3 wheels for the most part. We didn't do 1x1. 1x1's a little too small and kind of awkward to use, but yeah, smallest you can get, probably the buggy cockpit size to make it work pretty well. And definitely if you want to do some neon tubing vehicles, this one looks pretty cool because it looks almost like a kind of like a dune buggy kind of situation, I think you could say. But also almost look like a hot rod kind of thing in the front. But you definitely could do a lot more with the neon tubings and everything like that. But this was just to play around to make it see if it works pretty well or not. And apparently, yeah, it works perfectly fine. So these little buggies actually work pretty well. So I honestly messed around with the wheels just a little bit, or suspensions just a little bit. I have front steering only, so only the front wheels, left and right, can steer. I reduced the power by 25%, strength on the wheels by 12% to 12%, and the speed limit I left at 180. But we can actually go unlimited if you want to. 180 is probably a better idea, or even less, because there's no gyroscopes or anything on the default one here. And you could drive this pretty well, but eventually you will flip this guy over. As you see here, it steers left and right a little bit. And we can go 44 meters per second, and it works out pretty well. But once you slow down, I didn't even press anything, to be honest, and we're flipping a bit. So that's the problem you're going to have with these small rotors going too fast. So you definitely want to make it a little bit slower if you want to make sure you don't crash. So for an example, if we went full speed with these things, leave the strength, we'll just slowly crawl to the 100 meters per second, but we can just leave it like that and drive. You see it wiggles. I'm just pressing forward and you see that it's flipping a little bit. So that's the problem you're going to run into when you go full speed with these things. And I pretty much destroyed the whole entire Rover right there. So yeah, full speed ahead, not the best thing to do with these smaller Rovers because they're not really well balanced. They're very small and not wide enough to keep its angle and everything like that. But I did find a solution. And that's where how to not flip your small Rovers come in handy. Alright, so I have the same type of vehicles here. Like say this one, which is just the neon tubing one, right? And it drives pretty well. I like this one a lot. But then you have all these other small ones that drive just as well or just as crappy depending on the aspect of going full speed or trying to go full speed. So here's another example of that. We can change the speed limit, but the power is at 25%. And yeah, these are smaller Rovers that you see here. I look really tiny in it, to be honest. But yeah, if we try to get full speed or top speed here, this was a little bit bigger than the one we just crashed, but as we're going 60 meters per second, 70 meters per second, you see how wobbly it gets? And we're doing okay until right around there, 80 meters per second, we end up kind of flipping over. Right? So that's the issue you're going to run into. Adding a gyroscope actually helps out a little bit so you can control it a little bit more so that you can make sure that when you start tilting a little bit, you fix it with your mouse or controller, whatever you plan to use. But there's a better solution to that than just a gyroscope. And the answer to that is 2 gyroscopes. One with override and one normal without it. So that, for whatever reasons, helps this whole thing change on how it drives. So here's the small iteration of the buggy cockpit or buggy Rover here, which is just the size of or lengthwise of the buggy cockpit and the suspensions. We added 2 gyroscopes. One of them, again, is on override with 000 for yaw, pitch, and roll. The other one is just basic 100% power. You can lower it if you want, but I left it as is. And just sitting here with my mouse, I can move this up, down, left, right fairly easily, which is great. To showcase how well it works, we do the same thing. 12 strength, 25% power, speed limits at unlimited, and we're gonna drive forward. So I drive forward, and I'm just pressing forward. I'm not doing anything else, and you'll see how well it's driving. I'm tilting a little bit. I'm not crashing. I just hit a ramp too, and I'm flying a little bit. And again, I am just pressing forward, so my W key, and I'm not flipping off or anything like that. So the 2 gyroscopes, one override, one without, works really well to balance out your Rovers. So as you see here, and I'm flying a little bit, but I could also easily control the gyroscope of it, or gyro of it, from the override gyroscope and non-override gyroscope. That's how you balance out your small little rovers if you want to build these small little rovers at any point in time, to really drive it well, even at top speed. So that's a little bit of a tip for you guys on how to not flip over your small little rovers. If you didn't know about it, I'm sure a good number of you are well aware of it, but if not, it's a good tip for you guys. So I do know that the turning radius of it, once you add the override gyroscope, it's really bad. It doesn't really want to turn too much, but that's fine. Instead of turning with your keyboard, just turn with your mouse, and it makes it so much easier that way. So there you go. That's your tip on how to not flip your small rovers. And the experiment in some ways is it's kind of explained. Yes, you can build your rovers out of just neon tubing if you wanted to, just for fun. Probably not ideal for not stability, for reinforcing it. It's probably gonna break really easily. But my favorite is putting wheels together like this. It makes it a little bit wider, as you see here, but all of it's linked by neon tubes. And my gyroscope I had to put on the bottom, not the safest spot to do it, but I had no other choice, to be honest, for the time being. I mean, I could get rid of the lights here and put it on top of the reactors here, but I didn't decide to do that. But this one, with or without the gyroscope, actually runs pretty smoothly. With the gyroscope, a lot better. But you see here, the turning is in the front right there, which is not too bad. So as an example, I'm just gonna remove the two gyroscopes on the bottom, right? And we can go top speed too if we want to. Right there, we're at top speed. So here's top speed, or trying to get top speed. You see how well it's driving, even close to 80 meters per second. There's a little bit of flipping. Ooh, a lot of flipping actually. So that's definitely not great, right? But if we added the gyroscopes, we will be perfectly fine. Right, so in turn, if we had the gyroscope, one override, one no override, we can go max speed with it, and we can control it with our mouse. We can even do wheelies if we need to. And yeah, it drives really well. It does spaz out a little bit eventually, so it looks like my wheel can't go max speed because I didn't set it up. Here we go. So we go max speed with this guy. It's not too bad whatsoever. Does freak out once in a while, but it's not too bad. Right there is what I mean, the little freak out spazzing. But we drive this thing pretty good. It's definitely one of my favorite little buggy rovers that I've created so far. Alright, so with that said, hope you guys enjoyed this quick little video, this little experiment, this little how-to video. And of course, just hit that thumbs up, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.